So, Angela, you've got 4 children.
Yes.
And you've made the decision you're not leaving them a penny. Why have you done that?
Well, so I always sort of, it started out as a bit of a joke, you know, don't rely on me, I'm spending it while I can. I think there's a very serious underlying message here. I mean, if there's anything left in the pot, of course, they're going to be able to have it. But I think, first of all, I think it's almost irresponsible parenting to suggest to children that they can rely on the bank of mum and dad. They have to stand on their own 2 feet. They have to be able to make their own way in the world, as my father-in-law often says, that they have to get their label. You know, if everything is predicated on the idea that there's going to be a load of cash in the bank for them, I think that can somehow undermine that argument. But I also think that there's a more emotional side to this debate as well. For example, when my late mum passed away, she left a very modest legacy, which wasn't life-changing to me and my siblings. It was very nice for her. I would rather she would have spent it on herself. I would rather she did more with the money. I don't want.
How much did she leave you?
A few £1,000s, but it wasn't.
Did you use it for anything?
Yes, I did. What we did was we did up the back garden, the patio, because she was a great lover of gardens and gardening, and I thought that was a very nice, enduring memorial to her. But we would have found the money to do that anyway, and I would have rather she had that. I mean, I was chatting to a young man the other day who was telling me that his gran doesn't put the heating on because she wants something to leave the grandchildren, and I'm sure. And he said he would much rather she spent it on herself. So there's 2 aspects here. There's the idea of they must make their own way, but also that, you know, let your parents enjoy themselves. We give them everything along the way. It's work in progress, supporting children all through the parenting process anyway.
Let's bring Rebecca in. What do you think of all this?
I mean, I think it's really... I can completely see what you're saying. You don't want your children to grow up thinking, oh, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to inherit loads of money. But that's not the situation you're in. And now, when my friends get left money, we don't get to do things like doing up our gardens or going travelling. We pay our rent, or we pay off the debt that we amassed when we were doing an unpaid internship. And the reality is, it is a lot harder to be financially solvent now than it was 20, 30 years ago. And unfortunately, I think parents are having to make allowances for that.
Well, how would you, if your parents weren't in any way solvent enough to leave money for you anyway, how would you pay your rent? I mean, would you be living under a bridge? I mean, I'm not being facetious
I wouldn't
here.
be able to be a journalist. I wouldn't be able to live in London if my parents hadn't gone without things to allow me to.
You have to make choices based on that.
Yeah, but I don't think that if you have the money and you have children who want to do something that isn't going to be lucrative in the first place, it seems shocking to me that you wouldn't want to try and help them, especially seeing as people who are in their sort of late 30s above generally had a much better start in life anyway.
If you're one of your children, you've got 4 ranging from 12 to 23.
That's right.
If one of them did want to, because it is a reality what Rebecca's saying, that actually the cost of living now is so expensive. It's not like it was when you were a teenager. The world has changed dramatically. And if one of your children did want to, say, come and live in London, which is very expensive, and pursue a career where you're not necessarily going to earn a fortune on the off, would you support them in doing that?
Obviously, the thing is, as I said just a moment ago, parenting is a work in progress. If they need something here and now, I don't say, sorry, I'm putting it in the pot for when we go on our jolly, you know, me and your dad go on our jolly to somewhere exotic. All the time we're helping them. I've got 2 at university. They need help, obviously. Got one that's just done his A-levels and a 12-year-old. So every day you're spending money as a parent. What I'm saying is I don't want them to live with the notion that there will be a pot at the end of it. If there is, great, then we've all done well out of it because we're able to have a nice life and there's money left over. But in the process, I want them to do it for themselves. Very quickly, by example, our eldest, who's 23, has just finally bought his first car as a student, so he needs it. And he bought that himself with his savings, and the beam of satisfaction on his face when he bought this, nothing very expensive, it's only a little car, a few years old. Tremendous feeling, and I feel very proud as a parent to have inculcated him with that idea of financial self-responsibility.
But just because somebody's helping you out doesn't mean that you can't have a work ethic and be proud when you do buy something for yourself. It just means that you're aware that rather than getting into massive debt, it'd be better to ask for that help. And it's not about becoming lazy because you assume you're going to be given everything. I mean, most people's parents aren't going to leave them any significant amount of money that they never have to work again. But we're talking about leaving enough that you might be able to, if you're with somebody else and you're both going to inherit money when, sadly, your parents are gone, you might be able to just about scrape together the deposit for a flat. And that's not a joyful or indulgent thing. That's just being able to have somewhere to live.
It's not. But the other thing is that if you have this reliance on leaving money aside for your children, you can't. None of us are sort of soothsayers and prophets. What happens is, as we nudge towards old age, we do need that money for, God forbid, for medical care or for the things that, you know, the occupational hazards of just getting older that we hadn't foreseen.
You can see it's going to get tougher for the younger generation, though. I mean, surely a generation that you are looking at the generation that's coming through, it's going to get a lot harder for them in terms of, you mentioned getting a house and mentioned medical. Who knows? There's going to be an NHS in 20 years' time. Nobody knows, you know. So
no pensions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look,
pensions
yes,
in particular.
I realise that, and that's why the other thing is that the other thing that I said at the very beginning, I say to my children, even to my 12-year-old, is work hard, do the best you can to get a solvent and fulfilling
But that's not
career.
enough anymore.
Rebecca,
You
I
can
ask
work.
Could you have done? I mean, you are working in London.
Yes.
Have you had help from your parents?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you tell me how much they've helped you out?
I mean, so I'm 25 and I've been financially dependent on my parents for probably 9 months. And so they helped me through university, then they helped me move to London. Then when I was working, I worked 3 jobs in admin, working crazy hours, but I still couldn't pay my rent.
And how long do you think that's going to go on for? How long do you think your parents are going to kind of
Well,
be
they've
your
now,
crutch?
so this time last year they were like, right, Rebecca, you're 24, it's time, get out. And I think it needed to happen at some point, but honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done if they hadn't done that.
Yeah, but James makes the point that it's only going to get tougher for kids. With the greatest of respect, by the time I was 24, you know, I'd bought my own first rust bucket. My car. I was driving. My parents were very modest people. I didn't have any kind of financial help at all.
But university was free and rent was cheaper and there were more jobs.
And thank you for coming along, ladies.